Good afternoon. I am Vasuki Vardhan. I work here as a tech lead, so I mostly work with backend and platforms. Right. So today, mostly I will be going to be talking about observability in your applications. Right. So be it any front end or back end or any of those things for that sort. Today we'll be looking into two main things. One is OpenTelemetry and one is OpenLLMmetry, which is basically an abstraction over OpenTelemetry, right? And the tool that we would be using for that today will be SigNoz. Basically, what is observability, right? So let's start with that. In any application for that matter, right? So all the logs that is running in, all the events that is coming in, all the metrics that you're recording, all needs to be audited at some sort, right? So that is where your what you call a lot of your tools that you use these days, like Google Analytics or Facebook Analytics, whatever those things, what you're trying to do is you're trying to observe your application, right? How the users are interacting, from where you're getting people, how what kind of people you're getting, all those things. A lot of metrics that you're trying to analyze with those kinds of tools, right? So basically, observability at the very base level is you observe things, like you want to observe how your application is behaving, in what scenario what will happen, right? Or let's say you hit into a bug or a snag or something, you will need to observe on how it happened and why it happened. That is the baseline of what observability is. So that is what comes in your key components of observability is your logs. You always want to have logs properly detailed out. What are info logs, what are error logs, what are warnings, and all those things, right? So that will give you a much better insight into how things are working on. And then comes with metrics, which is basically a lot more important in the backend, where you're looking into how your system is performing, right? Is your service holding up, is your server holding up, how is your memory consumption, is there any memory leak, all those metrics come into play, right? We'll start to understand each and every component of what we're talking today, right? So coming to open telemetry is mostly an open specification, a framework of specifications which will te- tell you how you need to instrument your application so that you get all those details, right? So basically, what telemetry allows you to do is give a standard way of reading your metrics, right? So basically, you are writing an application, you write your own way of looking into your metrics, how it is performing, your logs and everything, right? So, and some other person comes in and they start writing it in their own way, and at the end of the day it becomes an entire mess, right? So, and this is an issue not just to the teams, but it can become an issue across organizations, right? So because people move from organization to organization and they bring their way of observing things. So basically, open telemetry gives you a standard framework which will make sure that company to company or team to team or person to person, the way you instrument things, the way you observe your applications is exactly the same, right? So there is no difference between how you did it in the previous team and how you're doing it now, or you will always know where to look at and what to look at, right? So there is very less uh, learning curve for that. So basically you learn once and you implement it everywhere, right? So this is more or less like, for even more simplification, it is more or less like your open API specification or your Swagger documentation that you give for the API, right? The defined framework or how you define an API. Open telemetry is something for observability. Same thing for observability. It will tell you how to instrument things, right? And basically, the tool that we are talking about today, SigNoz implements dashboards, visualizers, and everything over OpenTelemetry, right? So it aggregates and builds a lot of things, right? So basically, with OpenTelemetry, you have its own APIs that is coming through. I mean, it is not just a on paper documentation, but rather an implementation of a lot of things. So you get a certain APIs, you get SDKs, you get a lot of libraries and everything. A lot of places where you try to implement OpenTelemetry, you will also find components called as hotel migrator, hotel connector, and a lot of other things, right? So you will see the word hotel a lot of times. So hotel basically stands for OpenTelemetry. As a shorthand, we use that, right? So yeah, and since it's a standardized way of doing things, you have a larger platform and language support, right? So it supports Java, Python, Go, Node.js, and whole lot of other things. So it depends on which tool you are using to aggregate all of your metrics. They have very different ways of instrumenting, giving you an instrumentation library, right? So but underlying API which is actually collecting the data is pretty much the same across all these platforms. It Any platform which says that it uses OpenTelemetry, if there are around five different tools, let's say SigNoz and some other tools that are available, let even Prometheus, Grafana, even these have OpenTelemetry support these days, right? So at the end of the day, the base where this data is coming through is exactly the same. So you will see hotel collectors and hotel migrators everywhere used. So the underlying API which all of these tools are using is exactly the same. That is because of how OpenTelemetry is defined, right? So, and coming to another interesting part where in GeekyAnts these days we are pushing a lot towards uh, AI things, right? So you would have seen a lot of AI experiments coming through, and a lot of updates that you have heard from the town hall specifying in the push that we are having towards AI. That is where OpenLLMmetry comes into play. So it's basically uh, an abstraction layer over OpenTelemetry, but this is more tailored towards monitoring your LLMs, right? So this is OpenLLMmetry is an open source project that is maintained by Traceloop these days, right? So they made this entire thing. So basically, it can monitor almost all of your LLMs. It can be your in-house LLMs or even cloud-based LLMs like OpenAI, Vertex, Gemini, and Vertex AI, or even on Olama. If you are running your LLMs using Olama, it can also go ahead and instrument all of those things, right? So this gives you a much better idea on understanding how your LLMs are working, right? So you can easily identify how your models are performing, how your bots are performing. You can also figure out where are your bottlenecks, what is the accuracy that you're getting, and what is the stability of the model that you're using, right? So you can basically go ahead and look at all those things. So on the other side, where open telemetry comes into play over here is where you can also go ahead and look at the metrics of that LLM. So basically the usage metrics, tokens in, tokens out, all of those things. You can also look at the traces, logs uh, that were generated during the model training, and also if your model supports inference logging and execution logging, even those can be monitored. So basically open, which basically shows that there is open telemetry still at the very bottom layer, and there is a layer of abstraction and customization specifically for LLMs, right? So this is one of uh, very important tools right now, considering the generative AI wave that we are riding, that we get to know how we can observe our models and how we can make our offerings a lot more better. Coming to SigNoz, right? SigNoz is an open source platform, which basically implements OpenTelemetry, OpenLLMmetry, and all of those things. Right? So it's a full stack observability platform. So you can basically go ahead and look at the logs, traces, how your system is performing, and all of those things. And the best of all, this SigNoz is completely open source. You can go ahead and self host it on your own, and you can get it up running in a matter of minutes. Right? So it's not a huge uh, thing. And also, they also provide SigNoz Cloud, which is paid, and you can also use those things. And overall, SigNoz is an APM, right? So I'll come to what I'll basically, while going through the tool itself later on, I'll come to what exactly is APM, right? So for now, you can just take the acronym Application Performance Monitoring and uh, be with that, and we'll get into what exactly each and everything does to be qualified as an APM. Setting up with SigNoz, you will also get integration with OpenTelemetry that I have already told. So it's a straightforward implementation. OpenTelemetry comes in wrapped up with SigNoz, so there's nothing more that you need to do, and it will give you a centralized way of monitoring all your services at one place, right? So everything, your traces, your logs, your network traffic monitoring, your database call monitoring, even coming to the LLM monitoring, everything is available in one single place. And just like Grafana, this also provides you customizable dashboards, which basically means that you can go ahead and create your own dashboards, right? So this is a JSON based dashboard for people who have worked with Grafana before. It will be a very similar thing. You basically define your dashboard as a JSON, right? And also, probably for the people who have watched Tarun's talk in the GeekConf, you will probably relate it to it a bit more once you see the demo coming up and how uh, a dashboard is written, right? Coming up to the demo. So basically, we'll be going over a demo talking through all of these things. Right, so we'll show you how firstly show you how SigNoz is doing, and I've also created a small Node.js application with MongoDB, and you can all we can basically go through how things are being working over there, and you'll based on that you'll also see what kind of instrumentation that is being implemented at the Node.js layer, right, which will enable all of these metrics to come out. And then we'll come back to this SigNoz dashboard, looking at what are all the data collection we had and what kind of analysis uh, that we can make, right? And also at the fourth point, we'll also go through how you can look at other metrics, all the traces, logs, and all of those things. So yeah, I'm just starting out the SigNoz over here. So it's a simple Docker Compose command that you run with your YAML file, and it'll basically go ahead and boot up all the containers required for it, right? So while that is getting started out, so this is something that uh, I just generated out of uh, Copilot, as a simple to do application, right? Which basically does all the CRUD operations over MongoDB, right? So this is a simple Node.js application that I have, and this is the tracing.js, right? Again, this tracing.js is again available for you from SigNoz. So if you go for so basically if you search for this, you'll straight up get these things, right? So it'll basically go and tell you what all to do, right? So basically you'll need to install all of these um, packages, and it'll also give you the tracing.js data. So there is nothing more that you'll need to do, just copy and paste it and start working, as simple as it, right? And in the package.json, we will just add this thing so that even tracing even starts up, right? So since everything is started up, I'll go to SigNoz, right? So let's see, right? So now currently nothing is available. Let's start this. Oh, sorry, not at the right. Right. So as this starts up, so there are a few things that will come up. So you will firstly see those services that you have added traces for, that will start to come up over here. You will start to see other traces. So I had a lot of other traces, so our my node apps list you will start coming over here. So I have a other set of services, right? So basically you'll get all the traces like this, all the http endpoint. If you open up the endpoint, you'll also get the waterfall and how things have happened before, right? You can also basically click on a particular water block model and you can have a look at what exactly has happened during that point of time, right? So it will also give you which service it was, the driver id, and all of these things, right? So, and also a service map. So this is how you are looking at it. So the front end is over here. So I have a particular stack that I had hosted. So the front end is over here. Our customer microservice is talking to MySQL. Driver entity is talking to the front end, and the driver entity is also talking to the Redis, right? And everything is also talking to the routes. The front end is also talking to the routes endpoint. So basically, as you put up a lot of tracing in every single service, it can also start making sense of what service is talking to which, right? So all of the services also came up, and my node app also has come up, right? So yeah, just a second. I actually haven't started my Mongo yet. Let me just start Mongo. So that is now started. Let me start this off, right? So sorry for that. And also while that is coming up, so you can also have a look at all the logs over here. So you'll just see a set of logs coming, and if you want to have a look at a particular container, right? So let's say I want to look at the MongoDB log itself, right? So you can see all the containers that are running on my system right now. So let's say I want to look at MongoDB's log. You can run it and it will basically give you all the logs for that moment, right? You can also basically go ahead and do live logs. So each and every connectivity coming in, going out, everything will be logged over there. Right. So let's say we have this, right? So let's say I have localhost to do's, get, I have a lot of these endpoints over here, a few things over here, right? So let's say I'll create another request, but this time with post to do's. Let's say copy this for now and raw JSON, right? So you don't need this, you don't need this. So you get it over here, you get it over here, right? So basically, let's say now, since we were looking at the services, right? So I'll take you through it right now. Right. So as you see over here in the last minute, it'll also start showing you the latency graph of how your APIs are performing and what were your key operations that has actually happened. The get to dos have already shown up, the TCP connect, if you have any read files, MongoDB connectivity, all your Express middlewares are coming up, right? So you'll be able to see a lot of these kind of data, and you can also look at the DB calls. Check how many calls are you doing, and how much, what is the average time that it is each and every call is taking, right? And currently we don't have any calls to external APIs, but if you have calls to external APIs, even that will start getting recorded over here. So you will basically get every single thing recorded straight up, right? So this is one part. And also basically you can also go ahead and create any your own alerts. So let's say on a particular logs, right? So you can basically go ahead and create log based alerts. You can also create metrics based alerts and a lot of other things. And if you can also, what you can do is you can set an exception type, all the exceptions that is happened on a particular service will actually start coming up over here. It will also show your exception type, what is the exception message, how many times it has come, and when was the last seen, first seen, and which service it has been coming from, right? So all of these things will come up as you uh, go ahead, and you have your usage explorer. You can also go ahead and look at how many metrics that you're pulling at any given point of time, right? And you have your organization settings and all of these things, right? So you have your, so even let's say you want to have a look at MySQL, right? So MySQL's latencies are also being recorded. You basically get all the other things. So currently the only operation that I'm running is a select query, so it will record all of those things. There are no external calls, right? So we'll also get these things from where it is being called and all of those things, right? So lot of things that you can technically do, right? And you can also create your own dashboards. So basically this is something that I had created, right? So added a to do object, right? So at this point of time I actually went ahead and added an item, right? So basically I am creating my own metrics, my own dashboards, right? So let's say I go ahead and say I want to have another table. Let's say this time uh, let's say now MongoDB itself. Let's go to the MongoDB. Let's see where MongoDB is. So we can basically create any of those things, listening process threads, something like that. So you have this. You can also play around with your time series graphs. So your listening process times out and everything. You can clear your own thing. So let's say MongoDB network listener. It's something we'll put it up over there. We have a thing over here, right? So basically, let's say if I run another um, post query saying that test2, right? So this will show up. This is not, I've not put it to refresh immediately, right? So as and when the things come through, it'll start showing up, right? So we have also have other things. So I am currently going and setting up all the things required for the MongoDB. So you can basically create all kinds of panels and everything as and when and how we want it, right? So this is in terms of SigNoz and how you can use it to monitor and observe your applications, right? So we can basically go ahead and uh, try it out. It's not just Express. You can also go with Next.js. A lot of people who are using Next.js, you can also go ahead and instrument your front end applications as well, right? So they have pretty much documented things for even Next.js, right? So you can also go ahead and look at these things. You can basically go have a look at the laundry list of things that you can do with SigNoz, right? So APM is one thing. So you can also do a lot of infrastructure monitoring. You can do logs monitoring. You can also create all kinds of metrics and everything. And also the best part is you can now monitor your AWS environments. You can also monitor your Azure and GCP environments, right? So it's pretty much one-stop solution for most of your enterprise needs.